Jenna, I don't have any more questions. I have one more.
Yeah, one more.
So I lied. I have two more. Hello and welcome to Freelancers, the podcast where we answer all of your freelance questions. And today I am joined by someone who I have met before. I know a lot of these I've never met these people. But Jenna and I don't think we ever had any classes together, but we went to the same college together. We had the same friend group, and we know each other from college, essentially. So a very heartfelt thank you to Jena for being with us. It's Jena Marble these days, correct?
That's right.
Wonderful.
That's right, Jena Marble, which is funny because my maiden name, which, okay, side note on a side note, I spend a lot of time with my kids all day. So if I have a hard time forming sentences, it's normally because I don't have a lot of adult interaction. So that's number one. And yes, it's Marble now, which it was Sprout, but funny because of the famous YouTuber, of course. So
yes,
harder to find me on YouTube or on Google now, but Jena Marble.
It's okay. I will try to keep this as childish as possible to make you feel at home, if that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. That's perfect.
I can be very incoherent when I need to be.
Sure.
So, Jenna, when we were in school together, I knew you from working at the college radio station.
That's right.
I actually did not know that you did graphic design. You are a graphic designer, and that is about as much of an introduction as I'm going to give people. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been doing for the past, 10, 12 years.
I know, isn't that crazy that we graduated 10 years ago?
Yeah. What have you been up to the last decade?
Sure.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you got started.
Okay, so yes, like you said, I am originally from Illinois, went to ISU. It's funny, I applied to get into the graphic design school at ISU and I was denied. I didn't get accepted into the school of graphic design. I guess it was the art school there, which is okay though, because that's how I kind of happily wound up at the School of Communication, which is great. Will always have a soft spot for the School of Communication, met so many good friends there. But yeah, that's where I worked at Z&D, and I was actually the director of multimedia there. I wish I could find some of the things I did there for the website, creating the banners for the giveaways that we did. I'm sure it was just awful, but I'm still proud of what I did there.
Just like solid colors and everything.
That's exactly. I remember, so the font that is real, like decorative, that you kind of use for the go-to rock, like, flavor, rock of love type. I use that font a lot. But that's kind of where I say my love for creative storytelling began, because that's where I really got to hone in on it. But actually, after I graduated, I went to teach English in South Korea for a little bit, came back and didn't really know what I wanted to do, didn't really have a clear career path, but then kind of wound up on a marketing team at a real estate agency and have been doing graphic design ever since. So I was in Illinois and Chicago, and then I moved here to Arizona, which I'm currently based with my husband, my two kids. We're in Gilbert specifically, and I have been doing freelance now for about 2 going on 3 years.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of like really rubbed someone the wrong way that you didn't get into the graphic design program, to be honest.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. I know. And I remember exactly what I applied with. It was this really bad picture from a group of us at prom, and I had cut out the 6 of us and put a drop shadow and some real script font, and I just thought it was the hottest thing. And if I could see it now, I would be horrified.
It sounds very MySpacey, to be honest.
That's exactly what it was. So bad, but very good for my standards at the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I actually found a folder on one of my flash drive. I was going through some flash drives recently, and I found a folder on it from school, and I had schoolwork on it, and it was like so bad. It's a wonder I even got out of bed in the morning, frankly.
Isn't it? That's the thing though. You look back, and even at things I did maybe 3-4 years ago, and I'm like, oh, what? I thought that was good. So
Yeah.
my hope is that I just keep evolving, and that maybe 4 years from now, I'll look back at what I'm currently doing and say,
Yeah.
oh man, I've really grown since then. So
Yeah. I think it's a really good point.
yeah,
I think that if you probably are like looking back and everything that you've ever done is like the most
yeah,
amazing thing, you've
yeah,
probably not grown. Not to say that you can't have pride or have some favorite projects or something, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know anyone that's good at their job that looks back and is like, that was, real good,
That's exactly it.
for
Yeah.
everything, for everything. So
Yeah.
I think
No,
I think you're
right.
in
Yeah.
I think you're in good company there.
I'm sure I am. Yeah.
So Jenna, you didn't know that you were going to be a graphic designer, if I'm
No.
not speaking out of turn there.
Mhm.
So how, when you look back at your kind of path to get to this point, is it like fairly obvious that this is like what you were eventually aiming towards, or like you were gonna get to this point? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it
Um,
does make sense. I mean, yes and no. I think I've always wanted to do something creative. I mean, even when I was like 10 years old, I would get on Word and I would make things for my family, or I would make these graphics and pretend I was selling things on QVC. I mean, I was really in high school, I was in the yearbook club. I always loved it, but I I think I always saw myself in-house because I do. I love being on in-house teams, and that's where I started off. But it was my husband really who gave me the push in the butt to say, you can do this full time. And I don't necessarily know if I would have had the guts because I'm very risk averse, right? And it is kind of risky to do freelance and take
oh
that
yeah,
jump. So he was really the one that supported me and said, no, you can do it. You should do it. So I don't really know if I had imagined myself being a freelancer, but now that I'm here, it's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I had probably a very similar jump leap into
Yeah.
freelancing. I've been, or at least full time. I've been doing it on the side in some way, shape, or form since college, and then
Right.
uh, my wife Jordan, who she
Yeah.
was like, "Why don't you just do it? You're gonna be 40 and wonder why the hell you didn't do it now if you didn't do
Right.
it." And you get started in it and you wonder why you didn't do it sooner.
That's exactly right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's something that I found talking to people, and not just through this obnoxious podcast, but through knowing people in real life. Back when we
Yeah.
used to talk to people in real life before COVID,
Oh,
um,
sure.
was a lot of people, yeah, they would make like little scenes in Microsoft Paint, or they
Yep.
loved dioramas in grade school,
Mm-hmm.
adult shoeboxes, or
Yep.
whatever the case was. And I feel like a lot of people, when they get into one of these creative fields, they look back and they're like, yeah, I was like, I couldn't have done anything else at
Exactly.
the end of the day. Like I had to have,
Exactly.
and I guess it doesn't matter if you're
Yeah.
a graphic designer or video producer
Yeah.
or
Right.
whatever. Jen, you guys moved out to Arizona
Yeah.
recently, or what,
Hmm.
in the recent future, I guess, not too distant
Yes.
past. Um, sorry, I've had like 9 drinks today, so it's I've had like 4.
Totally fine.
Yeah, I've only
That's
had 4.
fine. I get it.
No, it's okay. So uh, before that, you said you worked in house.
Yeah.
Were you a graphic designer? And was it the real estate company, or was this a different?
So I worked at a couple different places in-house. I started just kind of on a marketing team at the real estate company in Chicago. And the woman who hired me, she's still a good friend, a mentor, love her dearly. She kind of gave me the grace and the, I guess, permission to kind of take on some graphic responsibilities, which wasn't necessarily in the job. It was more managing social media and writing blog posts. But I just kind of took it on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really like doing this and I think I'm okay at it. And so after that, I went to a marketing agency where I was in-house. It's still in Chicago. And then after that is when I went to ASU. We made the move. And I was at ASU for a while in-house at a couple different departments. So yeah, kind of ran the gamut of, very corporate to very relaxed. This is an agency, hey, to back to an educational academic field, which is pretty buttoned up and, rigid at times.
Yeah. What? Coming from several years in higher education, I can confirm that's 100%. So,
Yes.
and Jen, I think, I could answer this, but then what fun would this podcast be?
Yeah.
So, what was it like for you? So you've realized that you want to do graphic design.
Yeah.
You have worked in agencies or in house for your career up to this point, and then you are on your own and you need clients. How did you find those first clients for yourself when you were starting out full time? And if it bleeds into previous to full time, feel free to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've listened to a couple of your episodes, and I think this is kind of a reoccurring theme that I had to take on clients before I made the jump. So I was still working full time. And I had clients on the side that I would do work for at night on the weekends. And I found those through creative agencies. So Creative Circle, Creative Group, staffing, and recruiters that specialize in creative fields. There are quite a few of them and quite a few that are specific to the Phoenix area. So that's where I first made my connection with those creative agencies. And I said, I am available for remote freelance jobs. And that's kind of how I got those first few clients. And then after that, it was word of mouth and reoccurring clients. And then after that, it was, oh, I got lucky and the stars aligned and I was available for this. And then eventually, I don't think I had enough clients to quite go full time. I don't even think I still have enough clients to go full time, but it was just kind of like, okay, it's either now or never. So let's just do it. And we're going to keep working and pushing. And hopefully we will get to that spot soon where we say, okay, we have a full roster, no more, we're good, but we're still working to that point.
Great. Yeah, I think that it's pretty common with people to do it a little bit on the side, or maybe have a client or two. It's kind of like a foot in the door to the freelance
exactly
realm.
Yeah.
And so when you and I guess I'm going to come up with a question here in a second, I swear.
Sure.
So
we'll get
when
there.
you got to Arizona, what was it like trying to find clients in maybe a new market for you?
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, you had never lived out there.
I had never. No, right? My husband had. But the clients that I got were they were brand new. It didn't have to do with his old connections or his old, colleagues or whatever it may be. So, I mean, getting here, and I don't really know what pushed me to make that first step to. It was Creative Group that I reached out to initially, and I got that job through. I really don't know. I know this isn't great content, but my answer is I don't know, right? I just was
I don't know as an answer. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I was just kind of pushed to do it. And after that first client, I didn't have really any. And so I just kind of let it be for a little bit. But then, and especially with having one kid and having another kid and still working full time and doing freelance, there was a period of months where it was just like your head is spinning. I kid you not, I was having contractions and doing client work. I'm really not kidding. That was with the second kid. And then with the first kid, I was still in-house working at ASU, and I worked on Friday, gave birth on Sunday. So it's like your head is kind of spinning at times and trying to manage all of it. So, I mean, I don't even know how I wound up here or where your question was and, where I ended, but coming to Arizona, it was just kind of like, we're just going to go all for it. And all these changes are happening. And me and my husband are like notorious for, let's just try it. Let's just, let's just see what happens. Let's just go for it. And we just went for it, and we've just been going for it. And we kind of got to this point that, it's like we are trying to do as much outreach and as much, hustle, whatever,
Yeah.
as as we can to just, get the name out there and get as many clients as we can. So yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask a kind of a side follow-up question to this. So your husband is not involved with your graphic design business.
Well, so he wasn't, but I mean, this is a recent development that he actually is getting more involved now,
Okay.
which is great because he has a sales and business development background. So he can kind of bring that to the table and help with that. So together we have joined forces to kind of try and build the business a little bit.
Cool. So my uh, also related question to that was, um, like, what is it like? Do you think you could have done this, not to discourage anyone that doesn't have a partner, but like, do you
Right.
think you could have done this without a supportive partner? Like making that leap and
Right.
doing
And
what you're doing now.
that's exactly, I don't want to discourage anyone from doing it, but me personally, like I said, I'm very risk averse. So not knowing before, I needed to know I have a steady income. This is how much I make every month. I have benefits. I get A, B, and C. And if, I go to the doctor, this is exactly how much it's going to be. That has all gone out the window.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't have any of that anymore. So 1 month can be really good, 1 month can be really bad.
Yeah.
So my biggest advice is for anyone, single partner, whatever your situation may be, is to just ride the highs and ride the lows, because you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows, and
Yeah.
you cannot get so concerned. I do this with the worrying and like, oh my gosh, well, what if, because I'm terrible at the what ifs. That's where my husband is really good at saying, well, if this, then that, like, we will figure it out. We will come to these conclusions together. So again, not to discourage anyone who doesn't have a partner, but my partner in particular has made this a lot easier.
Oh
So I
yeah.
thank him for that.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, I think without it,
Yeah,
it would be like I'd be, I'd eat more Taco Bell than I do now.
that's
But
exactly
like I'd
it.
be eating Taco Bell in like a crappy apartment,
Right,
maybe doing some freelance on the side or something,
right.
but yeah, having
Yeah,
um I think um I think whether it's a friend group or family or whatever, I think having some support is really beneficial to people doing it. But I also think that at some point, if you're gonna do it, you just gotta do it, and not
right,
like because again, like you don't want to be sitting around in a rocking chair when you're older, wondering what could have been. Um,
right.
and worst, not worst case scenario, but like odds are if things don't go your way, you're just gonna have a couple of months of like you know, a
Right.
couple of tight belt months or something where you have to eat rice and beans.
Exactly.
Um,
And that's the thing. Like, when you first do make the transition, it probably is going to be exactly that, a transition between having a full-time job and steady income to, oh, I've really got to find all these clients to make up for that. But then hopefully, you will write it out and things will correct themselves and you will get those clients. But yeah, it's going to be a transition when you make that jump. And if you want to, then you should absolutely try it. And especially
yeah,
now with COVID, I mean, trying to find the silver linings where we can, with so many companies and businesses going to remote. And because before, the only jobs I could take were remote freelance, and they were kind of far and few between. But now it's like everything is
yeah,
remote. And if it's not remote, I'm like, well, what do you mean it's not remote? Like,
yeah,
what do you mean it's on site? I'm not going on site.
yeah,
So that is kind of a good thing to come out of this, is so many companies are willing and kind of have to work remotely with their clients or their potential freelancers now.
yeah, yeah. I think that maybe an upside to some of this would be that people are seeing the benefit of contract freelance employee style work,
Right.
and
Yep.
hopefully we would, hopefully our industries will only benefit from it.
I
Um,
hope so. Yeah.
so Jenna, let me ask you a question about some of the stuff that you do, because you have
Yeah.
a delightful website.
Oh, thank
And I
you.
truly mean that. It's very beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
it's well branded. The designs are great. Um, if you spend more than like 10 seconds on your website, you clearly you clearly know what you're doing. But I want you, in your words, what are some of the things that you do in terms of the work that you do for your freelance clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of focused, I guess, on print and digital, marketing collateral, but we also do um, branding, rebranding, giving your current brand a facelift. Um, you know, I mean, we kind of talked about this too a little bit: social media design, infographic design. What else? I'm trying to think of the different pages on my website. Amazon design, Amazon stores,
Oh, cool.
all that good stuff.
Yeah, if I were a good podcast host, I'd have this like thing pulled up. Let me type it in. It's gonna.
You're totally fine.
Jena Marble Designs. Is that right?
So it's jenamarble.com or marblegraphicdesign.com.
Oh, there's it. Okay, I was like, no wonder it wasn't coming up. There we go. Okay. Yeah. What do you have in your
what else?
What do you have in your menu here? Branding, Amazon, infographics.
Branding. So some print, but not as much. But
right.
I think the approach we kind of take is maybe a digital first, where we design a lot for web graphics for Google Display, like I said, Amazon, all this good stuff. That I would say is our main focus as of now.
Yeah, I think that's a good mindset to have, because I think that you can do, if you're going to need something for digital, it's going to be high res enough for print, most likely.
Exactly.
Exactly. Unless it's a little thumbnail for YouTube or something.
Right. Yeah.
So, again, what a beautiful website. I was just looking at it. So anyway, the branding part of things, that's where my question was, because I think this is really, really fascinating. So when you are branding or rebranding for a client, this is like a big, and you've done this yourself essentially, trying to brand yourself as a freelancer, same thing that I have. How do you get approached by clients for that, or how do you approach a client about doing that?
Yeah. So up to now, we've been approached where it's either a referral or a word of mouth, or LinkedIn is another really good place that I found a pretty recent branding job. LinkedIn Profinder. They might have rebranded it, but there was a request for work, and I basically put in a submission, whatever. So yeah, we haven't done a whole lot of outreach, like, oh, your brand could use a facelift. We haven't done, we haven't approached that quite yet, but yes, so far it has been people that have needed either something created from scratch or something that just kind of needed a lift.
Great. So something that I feel like might be tough to deal with, and I have a lot of thoughts on branding for clients, but most of the time they just hire me to do videos, so I keep my mouth shut. But when you are doing this work for someone, how do you approach that in a way that is positive, rather than, hey, everything that you've done so far, like, hey, this color sucks, or this is bad, or how do you approach that in a positive way? Because this is something that I'm really interested in hearing how other people approach this.
Man,
I'm essentially just trying to get a free course in how to deal with clients. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, then can I take that course too?
Okay, I thought you were going to help me out.
No. Well, I mean, of course I do have some advice, but I would love to hear others' experiences with it as well, because I think this is kind of always a sticky, it's touchy. I again have dealt with this recently, where a client wanted a logo and I gave them really nice custom word marks, did a whole bunch of research on what the name was of their company, what it represented. Here are some different color palettes. Here are those logos deployed in real settings so you can see it on a sign or your business card. Like, really worked my butt off on this. And I thought that they were really nice. And they came back and they're like, no, we kind of just wanted this. And it was just some Shutterstock, and I kid you not, like, it's just Shutterstock. And I was like, oh my God, So it's kind of this balance. And my husband and I have had this conversation because, again, things are always evolving. You're going to do one thing for one client and then you're going to evolve it. Your approach is always changing. It's always evolving. It has to, because what worked for this one, it probably isn't going to work next time. And that's just the nature of, freelancing. So my approach has been, for now, to kind of approach it with, you hired me to do this job. Here's my professional advice. This is the reason why I did it this way. This is what I highly recommend doing. And if you want this, I can certainly give it to you, but for X, Y, and Z reasons, you should go with this. It's professional. It will build loyalty. It's clean, professional, specific to your brand. Whereas this, anyone can have it. This, we could take elements of this maybe and put it into a logo, but I wouldn't recommend doing it. However, at the end of the day, it is your client. And if that's what they want, then you have to give it to them, right? So it's just kind of this weird dance that you have to do between saying, please listen to me, and I'm just going to give you what you want. And sometimes you do just have to give them what they want. So I still struggle with this. I've been designing for almost 10 years now, and it's something that I still come up against and have to approach each client differently with. And it depends too on your relationship. If you've been working with them for years, you could probably be a little bit more honest, like, I wouldn't do that and you shouldn't do this. But if it was a brand new client, then you might want to develop that relationship a little bit more before you completely poo-poo on it.
Yeah. I try not to poo-poo too much. I'm now gonna put like a poo-poo counter. Now that we said it 3 times, I'm gonna put it in the corner of the screen and we'll see if we can.
Oh, well, I have 2 kids, so we can talk about poop quite a bit.
Work it in as much as you possibly can. But no, I think it's great advice. And one of the things that I struggle with is, I've been doing this for 10 years. You've hired me 15 years now at this point.
Yeah.
You hired me to do a job. My work. You've seen, you've gotten recommendations from other people or whatever. But like at the end of the day, I'm here to make your video.
Right.
I'm not here to make my video. If I was going to do that, I wouldn't have you involved, frankly.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But it's a really tough balance because, and I'm sure, actually, I'm going to ask you about this in a second too, but I've had video projects where I'm like, man, this would be fucking killer. Like, this is going to be front and center on my portfolio. And then like 4 days later, it's like a 1980s local car commercial, and you're like, because they just want all this asinine stuff. And like, at the end of the day, you're like, well, they're like, that client is so happy, but you're like, don't put my name on it, man. For the love of God, whatever you do, don't put my name on that. But call me next video, because I like getting paid. Do you have design projects like that?
So maybe this is for all freelancers, that there are going to be clients and projects that are super fulfilling, and those, if you're lucky, you get a lot of them. But maybe there are going to be other projects that you are not necessarily mindless, but they aren't as creative or fulfilling, but they're still work and they're still clients, and you still have that relationship. So I have that balance right now where I'm like, oh man, this doesn't look very good. Like, I can't put this in my portfolio, but not everything I'm going to do is going to be, like you said, front and center in my portfolio. And a lot of the times I am going to put things in front of a client that I'm like, oh man, they're going to love this.
Yeah.
And they hate it.
I'm always amazed at how, like, you put so much heart and effort and soul into it, and like, and you're like, this is so good, and the client's like,
so good.
Where's the sparkle? And you're like, it's heartbreaking. And I have a client right now, and I'm not going to name them because I like them. I like when they pay me, but it's like I've had them for a while, and it's like every other time I see something from them or we work on a project together, I'm just like, okay, sure. And I'm like, I don't want people to know, like, I want you to talk to people about me, but I don't want other people to know that I've done
But that's
these
exactly
projects.
right. There are
And it's,
definitely a few clients who are not making it onto my portfolio.
yeah,
Like, oh, I love our relationship. I love you, but
yeah.
we're just gonna, yeah,
And I love this client. I'm like, this
yeah,
person is great.
yeah,
I've hung out with them outside of client freelancer situations,
yeah,
but yeah. So, Jenna, back to the kind of the branding and rebranding.
yes,
When you get into a situation like this, when you get into a freelance, you got a client that comes to you, wants to rebrand or brand something. What kind of research do you do? What's your process like I mean, essentially you're trying to come up with something from scratch in a
yeah,
sense, but based on something that already exists. What's your process like when
right.
you approach those
So
scenarios?
this has definitely evolved as well. When I did one of my first client branding projects, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. So it was paid very little and I didn't have any like stipulations at all. So it was just like, hey, you're going to get 6 logos up front and then however many revisions you want, like let's just go for
Yeah,
it. And
200, great.
oh my gosh, at the end of I was just like, what
Yeah,
just happened? So my advice for anyone getting into it is have a process set up. Here's my process. We are going to have a kickoff. We are going to have a research phase. We are going to have a development phase, and then we're going to have a launch phase. So I have these very clearly set milestones, and a client knows exactly what they're going to get in each one of those. And I lay that out. I have a little, capabilities booklet that they get when we first connect that kind of lays it all out for them. It has the pricing, it has everything in black and white. So there's no question about it. So for anyone that's just starting out, or even if you don't have this, and you've been doing this for a while, there are tons of templates online to just go and find, what these processes are that you can lay out. And so that's black and white from the beginning. But what I also have is in this research phase, which is for every client, you will fill out a questionnaire saying, what are my goals? What are my competitors? What is my current brand? Where do I want to take it? Who's my audience? We ask those things because we need to figure that out. Are we going to do something super, is it for an academic client where we're going to use, serif fonts and everything's going to be kind of buttoned up and really dark neutral color palette, or is it's going to be kind of a fun wellness client where we're going to use bright neons and all this stuff. So no matter what client I have, we approach it with, we're going to do research, we are going to look at our competitors, and we're going to create something that is unique and specific to your vision and your purpose and your brand, which is, miles away from that first one I did where
yeah.
I don't even think we ended on a logo. I think we just kind of stopped talking to each other.
Yeah.
Really, I'm done with you.
Sometimes that's the best way to deal with the relationship. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a couple people that I just literally don't talk to anymore. But that aside, actually, my first idea for a podcast was to just have freelancers on that they could just rant about their clients. And then I was like, that's going to get so many of us fucking fired.
I know,
so
that's the
quickly.
thing. Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I don't think I have a single client
Yeah.
that listens to this, but I was like,
Yeah.
that's going to be
just in case.
Just bad news.
Yeah.
We'll just do it over like a group Zoom chat once a week or something.
Exactly.
So no, that's great. That's I like that info a lot. And I do some very loose variations of that when I'm trying to come up with maybe an idea of, a lot of times, people approach me and say, hey, we want this event filmed. But on times when I'm trying to come up with a concept for someone, trying to do research into that industry or into competitors, things like that are really important.
Very.
And I think having a client or trying to lead the client into like having an like open, honest, self-reflexive look at who they are, who their brand, and what their brand is really important. Because if you've got someone that doesn't know, what they're what they are or how they want to be perceived, there's no end goal in mind. It's just kind
Exactly.
of wherever.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to do those to work with the client on those sort of things.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
and do you ever, and this is kind of a follow-up question, when you're doing the research and you identify some competitors for your client, do you ever try to go, hey, look at all of your competitors are doing X, we should also do X? Or are you trying to do like all of your competitors are doing X, let's do Y? Do you have like
Right.
and it might be different for every client, but I'm
Yeah.
just kind of curious how you approach those situations.
Yeah. So it depends. So with this client, for an example, they sent me a whole bunch of logos that they liked, and they weren't all in the same industry. One was from a dentist, one was from, like a law firm, some other ones, but they all had the same elements. So I was kind of able to take that and say, okay, we can use elements from this. This is what you like. So let's kind of make that our own. But I do think, especially like in the healthcare field, which is a lot of my current clients are in, especially with everything going on right now. I don't think that that is necessarily the space to, well, maybe not. So it depends. I actually just read a really good article about how healthcare was kind of rebranding for millennials and, kind of getting these really sleek brand jobs. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of go off topic here. I wasn't totally prepared for this question, Adam.
It's okay. No,
Um,
we both read off teleprompters this whole time,
right.
so this is totally
Yes,
off question.
exactly.
Yeah.
This answer is total poo-poo. So just
That's
put
okay.
it
That's it.
right there.
Wherever the counter is on that side,
Um,
I'm down below. So.
but I think it depends on the situation, on your brand, on your client. Like I said, your vision, your purpose. There are some situations where you want to all stay with the healthcare industry. If you're a brand new product, you want to make sure that people recognize this. Oh, I can look at this and I can make sure that when I see it, I know that it is within the health care industry. And I think there are a lot of ways to do that with the fonts you use, with the graphic elements, right? If you kind of look at something, you probably know GoodRx logo comes to mind. Oh, I know obviously what with RX, but you kind of know that it's within that realm. So for specific clients, maybe I do say we want to stick with some elements, but with other ones, maybe with luxury real estate or with, a brand new startup with maybe a tech company, there are opportunities, I think, to get a little more funky, a little more unique, because you are wanting to stand out. You don't necessarily have to try to show that you're part of this industry from the get-go.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, and I appreciate you answering that question as you did for me, not telling you about it ahead of time. I think in some email somewhere I said I might ask follow-ups, but
that's okay.
We'll do it. But that's really fascinating. It's a really fascinating answer, and I think this I was at an insurance conference like 4 years ago filming because you couldn't drag me there otherwise. And it was like all just insurance companies. I'm going to lose all my insurance company sponsorships now. But it was like, now that you say that, every single brand was like you could tell that they were insurance companies. And I don't and it's wild that like, I don't look at a font when I'm coming up with fonts or, coming up with graphics in like Photoshop or Adobe Premiere. I don't look at fonts and think of them as, oh, that's a health insurance font, or that's a insurance font, or that's a, truck font or something, or automotive font. But, when you look at them as a whole, it like makes sense visually.
And that's what a good logo should do, right? You see it, and even if you don't, the name doesn't say in it specifically, this is an insurance company, this is a real estate company. The logo and the surrounding elements, whatever they may be, they should automatically trigger in your mind that this is exactly what this brand is. It's exactly the product or service they're selling, without even having to, say it outright.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
total sense. I hadn't really thought of it in that way. So it's a really, I appreciate that answer, and
Yeah.
that insight too. Um, so something else, Jenna, and I literally emailed this to you earlier, this question, so back
I
off.
can't. Yeah.
Um, dealing with children all day, I wanted to give
Sure.
you as much information as possible.
I appreciate it.
So,
Yeah.
so something that I think is on your website that I saw that I actually have not seen a lot of other designers do,
Yeah.
is you have showcased some infographics. And
Mhm.
this was something that I had taught a visual design course years ago at Illinois State University. And I am by no means a decorated designer of any kind, by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination. I don't know how I got the job, frankly. But we did some infographics, and I always thought it was a really good way to get people thinking about design.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of like details to it. There's a lot of like broad stroke stuff to it. But anyway, in terms of infographics, I want to talk to you about like, what makes a good infographic or what makes a bad one when when you've looked at others or when you're trying to design one for a client. What do you
Yeah.
try to have in one?
Yeah. So I do. Infographics are hands down my favorite project to work on. Even when again, going back to the creative agencies, when I first started interviewing with them, I told them I love infographics, and I was kind of for a while their go-to person. So if they had a client that was looking for infographics, they would approach me, which is a great tip for any, designers to kind of find this one thing that maybe you could be that person. Social media, Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah.
whatever designer, and you can kind of be that go-to. So infographics was that for me, and I still love them. And they're very challenging to take just this grotesque set of words and data that makes
Yeah.
no sense
Yeah.
and to turn it into something that is so clean and elegant and thoughtful, and it really tells a story. I like it probably the most because it is so rewarding to see that payoff. So for
And
me, a good,
they've got to be easily digestible too,
and that's exactly right.
right?
That's what I would say, that for me, the
So
best ones are the
difficult.
ones that you look at and you can immediately understand and translate the data to see this is a story they're telling. And for me, the best ones have a payoff too. Like you're telling this story, but what's the payoff? Is it climate change? Is it, even with all the data visualization with COVID happening, it is so easy to take this data and to put it, into this format that is so easy to understand, just, the gravity of whatever your story is telling. So yeah, for me, infographics are just so personally rewarding to be able to visualize that data and tell a story in a way that's not this Excel Word doc that no one would read or pay attention to. But the
Yeah.
numbers, they tell something very important. So it's a really nice job, I think, to be able to put it into a format that people want to look at.
Cool. Do you have a favorite one that you've done?
Well, speaking of COVID, kind of. So we actually did one when I was at the marketing agency in Chicago. We did one on Ebola because that's when the outbreak happened of Ebola. And so we did search and social behavior around Ebola with, how people would, their search and social behaviors based on these different events. Here's a case was reported here, so search spiked, whatever. Here were the people were searching for this on this date. That was actually a really nice, rewarding one to put together, because I think it told a really pretty powerful story about how people, were behaving and what they were looking for and how they were feeling when all that was happening. So that one was pretty cool. Yeah.
No, that sounds great. It's great to hear you describe it. And I'm actually looking at it right now. And it if you didn't know, you could replace COVID
Right.
with all the Ebolas there, and it would make it would read the same way. And there is
exactly.
It is really, it's fascinating. It is a good like story in a sense.
Right. Yeah.
And it's done. Hot take. How do you feel about sources at the bottom, or like
Mm.
reference links? Do you like those? Yes or yay or nay? I know this is off
Uh,
topic, off question, off book.
no, yeah, I think sources are important. I don't, I think those have sources on there. Um,
I know I just closed the window out, but I know at least
yeah,
a few years have sources
yeah.
available on them.
I think especially if you're quoting data sources or obviously direct quotes or academic sources, I think those are probably pretty important to quote or
Yeah.
to source. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so surprised when I see infographics, because as a consumer, I
Yeah.
like them a lot. They're
Mhm.
engaging, they're short, they're
Yeah.
perfect for either a, like a laptop screen or a computer screen, or even
Yeah.
like mobile too,
Exactly.
Um, you can kind of scroll at your own leisure, you can browse around. The good
Yeah.
ones kind of draw your eye downward,
Exactly.
or throughout the graphic.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm always surprised that when I get done reading one and then I'm like, there's no sources that I can verify
Yeah.
any of this information
Or learn
or
more,
learn
right?
more.
About
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you just read. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. So
Um,
if I do them going forward, and if I haven't in the past, I apologize. I will source going
it's okay.
forward.
I'm not gonna follow you around and
Make sure
bing,
you update that one from 2014.
yeah, talk to the World Infographic Forum about Jena Marble's, stuff,
Yeah.
and they're gonna go, the YouTuber, she make.
No
Okay.
way. Yeah.
No. So, no, that's great. And like I said, I was so pleasantly surprised to see that um, when I looked at your website,
Yeah.
that you do those. And I'm always like, I see so many infographics, and I see so many good ones. I see, a fair amount of bad ones, but I'm always like, who's designing these?
Yeah.
Why are more people not kind of showcasing these on their websites? And I don't know if there's like a stigma against it, or
I
what.
I don't
I don't know, but
I don't know
I just,
either, or that maybe it's something that people don't necessarily think of as part of their marketing strategy, which, is kind of,
yeah.
I always talk about infographics. I try to always make my clients incorporate them somehow. I did one actually just last night. It was the first one I had done for a while that was designed specifically for Instagram. So, the carousel where you're
Oh yeah,
scrolling
that's
through and
great.
it's all just a smooth experience. And
Yeah.
I had never done one for Instagram before, and that was very satisfying to see it all come together. And flow so smoothly. So I think if you have a strong Instagram, strategy and marketing and following, then uh, infographics should absolutely be a part of that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, because even though infographics I don't think are that old of a, medium,
Yeah. Mhm.
it's fascinating that they're already evolving to be, like a
Exactly.
carousel
Hmm.
format rather than just
Exactly.
one solid thing.
Yep.
And I've been seeing a lot of
Hmm.
these kind of, and I actually never thought of them as infographics. I've always just thought of them as like a branded graphic slide, a couple
Right.
of slides or something. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. I'll have to like, I'm like rethinking how I.
Right. How you interact with, yeah, your feed.
Oh my gosh, I know. And yeah, I think those are really popular. I think that I
They
see those
are.
all the time on Instagram, like
Yes.
all the time.
Yes. Especially in sports, even with players and
Yeah,
stats and all. They're very popular. So
yeah.
yeah.
I can't say I have a lot of men that watch sports listening to this podcast, but
Sure.
I'll tell some of my sportier friends about it. But so that's great. So Jen, another question I've got for you is, do you have any, let's say we're aiming this at someone who's interested in getting into design at this point in time. They're either younger or starting out. What are some like tips or like do's, don'ts, some tricks that you have,
Yeah.
things that you do that you find useful for yourself when you're coming up with designs or creating
Um,
designs?
Man,
And
I
this can
think
be like
pricing.
this can be your top 45 tips. I don't really care.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm ever going to give a tip, it is like don't underprice yourself. Even if you don't know what you're doing as a freelancer, time is your number one. Like you don't have to deal with supply chains, right? You don't have to deal with manufacturers. Time is that's your biggest asset. So you have to make sure that you are pricing yourself appropriately. And I did it. And I think a lot of people do it when they're first starting out. They're like, I don't think I deserve this. Like, I better, play it pretty safe.
Give me $100.
Right. That's fine.
Yeah.
One of the best pieces of advice I've seen is if everyone is saying yes to your prices, they're too low.
Yeah.
So, and I know as a freelancer, when you're first starting out, you're like, man, I really need this work. And maybe you do. So maybe that's the approach you take. And after some time, if you can evolve and you feel more comfortable and you have more clients and you have a little more stability, evolve those prices. Because again, if everyone's saying yes, then you are pricing yourself way too low. And that's just something that I kind of think comes with it. So having the pricing strategy, your plans, here is my flat fee per project. Here is my hourly fee. Here is the structure. You're going to get this many drafts. You're going to get this many revisions. And after that, you're going to pay me however much per hour. Have these things set up, lay them in black and white for your clients so you know what to expect and they know what to expect. Because I've watched enough Judge Judy episodes to know that if you don't have a contract up front, then there's way too much gray area. So just try to limit that gray area as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And that translates to, almost any freelance
industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, whatever you're doing, it's, if you get caught up in that gray area, that's, it's like one of those things where people are going to think it's closer to them. You're going to think it's closer to you. And then there's this big gap in between you that has to get filled somehow. Someone's got to give, or there's got to be additional compromise. And
that's right.
If you had just gone on it in initially, and outlined it, the way it should be. And
yeah.
And
if you're underpricing yourself right from the get-go, well, if this is a recurring client, then they're going to expect kind of those prices throughout your entire relationship.
Yeah.
So if you totally underprice yourself from the beginning and you're still working with them a year later, it's like, well, if only I had, gone for that bigger ask. And you can always justify it. You are the expert. You have the experience. They can't do it themselves. They came to you for this job. Just be confident in yourself and your abilities, and know that you are providing a service that a lot of people don't know how to do.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think that's, and I fall victim to that all the time when I either want a client and I give them a discount, or
always.
Or like early on when you were like, someone would want a video that, now I would charge $2,000 for, and I would be like, 200, and my voice would crack, and like I'd be sweating, and and I was so excited to have $200 at the end of this video, and I'm like, I look at it now, and
20 hours later, it's like,
you're like living below the poverty line doing it, but
I know. I know.
Yeah, I think that pricing is really good, and it's really good advice for anyone, and that's, gosh, it's like even this long into it, I still have to like look in the mirror and be like, don't give up your pricing.
Seriously,
stick to what you.
Stick to it.
It's so hard, and I meet someone that I'm like, oh, you're such a good friend of mine now. We're best friends. A client, and then I'm like, then 6 months later, I'm trying to bill them for something, and they're like, I'm like, like, I know I should have not been your best friend, but it's just because we didn't get stuff in writing, or
Sure. Well, that goes back to the gray area too, but also I think that there are some special exceptions. If you have work that you're really passionate about, or a specific client or industry that that you want to get into, or you just you have a passion for, then maybe you will price differently for a nonprofit than you would a luxury real estate company, right? Because you're just going to price them differently, maybe, if that's your approach. And you have to think too about, what is this piece of material that I'm creating? Is this their brand deck? Is this going to tell their whole story? Is this the pitch? Is this what they're using to close deals and make millions of dollars? Because if it is, then you need to price appropriately. Or is it something that's just a one-off, one-time, one-use piece of material or asset? Because then you might, price that differently. So think about how this project that you're creating fits into their entire marketing strategy and price appropriately.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, that's how I try to approach things too, is where I'm like, oh, you know what? This normally would cost me X amount of money to do this big project. But then I'm like, they're just using them as like one-off social media vignettes or little snippets or ads or something. And I'm like, well, and they're a good client, and I'll give them a discount on this thing because they know that it's not like a big overly produced commercial or whatever, whatever the case is.
And those are things too that you learn after doing it for a while. But if you're just starting out, you might not know those things, and they might not even be things that you think about. But as you get more comfortable with the process and with your clients and with your capabilities, and it will always evolve, but it definitely becomes easier, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hopefully it does. If it doesn't become any easier, you might be doing something wrong. I don't know what to tell you, but like you might be doing something a little wrong. But no, that's great. I think that's great advice for anyone. So Jena, I don't have any more hardball questions for you, or
that's good,
or follow-up questions to throw you. So I do want to ask a couple of like we'll call them fun questions.
I like fun questions.
So what are what's a really cool project that you've worked on? What's like you look back and you're like, man, that was just such a fun project. Do you have one in mind? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
Let me think. I'm gonna plug these in really quick.
Yeah, it's okay. I cannot hear you.
This is like,
oh, there we go. Okay.
doomsday scenario. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
No, it's okay. I talked to you for an hour and your wireless headphones went out. Wow.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, one of the funnest projects I've ever worked on. So for me, the most rewarding are probably these branding projects where I'm taking something that was just completely non-existent and creating something for my client's vision, whatever it may be. So I did one where it was like health, wellness, body, face destination here in the Phoenix area. And it was really cool because my branding also got to dictate their physical space. So they had big quotes on the walls, or they had the actual logo as like this really cool metal sign, or they had signage all throughout, and that was really fulfilling to see it come to life. Doing a lot of work too when just the healthcare space right now, because of the general state of the world, has been really fulfilling, helping insurance companies or companies that are trying to connect people to insurance. That's been also very fulfilling recently. I mean, some of the funniest ones though I've worked on is like medical devices. That was pretty funny with catheters and.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to see that infographic.
I don't think you would.
No, I wouldn't.
There's some pretty good illustrations for that.
Yeah. I'll leave it to my imagination.
I mean, really, there's a lot of medical ones, and those can be kind of bleak, but they're very rewarding. So I would say that in general, those are probably some of my favorite.
Cool. Yeah, I bet they have a lot of high reward because of the impact that they stand to have on people. What are you working on right now? And is there any projects you're looking forward to in 2021?
Okay, so let's see. Well, actually, I just wrapped up that really fun year-end infographic. Those are my favorite to work on year in review. Like, let's take a look back at what we did in the previous 12 months. Those are my favorite. So I just wrapped up one of those. I'm actually kind of going through an identity crisis with my own branding, which I think a lot of designers probably do. You see things and you're like, oh God, that's so good. You know, I need that. So right now we're trying to work on kind of getting our own brand identity in tip-top shape. So that's what we'll be working on in 2021. And we will be doing a lot of outreach because we are really trying to grow our business, my husband as well. So in the new year, we're just going to be working on trying to do outreach and get our name out there and try to bring in new clients. So we're going to be riding the highs and riding the lows.
Yeah. I'm coming up on one of the Illinois winter lows, you know, where there's like no video production for like 3 straight months. So
yeah,
I'm trying to ride my September, October, November high at this point in time. But it's really exciting, and it's I think that everyone goes through those identity crises, you know,
always
at some point where, you know, you've been doing something for 5 years or a few years and you're like, what could I be doing better? You know, could I use a logo redesign? Could I use a website redesign? And honestly, everything is such a living, breathing part of your brand these days that like, you know, it's almost like every year you should look at, every other year you should look at your website.
Exactly.
Every year you should just take a week and look at it and see what could be improved. You know, look at your social media, see what you could do.
That's
look at your, you know, if you've had the same anything for 5 years, you know, you should probably reevaluate it. At least in the freelance space. I mean, if you've had your kids for like 5 years, you can keep them around for a little longer, but you know,
hopefully.
Yeah.
But that's the thing though, your portfolio is never done. There's always things to add. There are always skills to learn. There are always new, you know, methods to try. So yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Okay, Jenna, last question that I officially have for you.
All right.
Second to last. What's something that you would like to work on? What's a project that you've like, oh, I'd like to work on that?
2 of them. I have like 2 design bucket list items. One of them is rebranding like an entire city. I've always wanted to do that, which is funny because just today, Gilbert, the city we live in, announced that they had a brand new brand identity that launched. I was like, oh, I missed it, you know? And it's really nice too, if you get a chance to look at Gilbert, Arizona. But I've always wanted to do that. And then the second one is to do, you know, you have these cheesy Hallmark Lifetime movies. I've always wanted to do the design like in the background. So if you're at a company, I want to do the signage, the logo, the brochures, whatever for this made up company. And a cheesy holiday movie, always.
Oh, that's super fun. I love it. Yeah, the Gilbert stuff is nice.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah, that the thing about the like fake background stuff in like Lifetime movies is super fun. Like I think I shared this with some other video people, but like when did you ever used to watch like Seinfeld or Friends or, you know, any of those like shows when you were younger?
Not really.
Okay, no. Well, so there was in Seinfeld they would like make up like it was like they'd go to see a movie, but it was not a real one.
Yeah, right.
Like, we're gonna go see the like, you know, the Maiden of, you know, like whatever. And then in our buddy Steve Cease, we would always come up with when we were driving around doing dumb college boy stuff, we would come up with like taglines for it, and like we'd come up with like the audio for the movie trailer. And I just want to like make movie trailers for the fake movies that don't exist, but that are like in TV shows.
Yes.
And I'm like, there's literally, unless someone's hiring me to do it for the TV show, there's literally no money in that. Like after the fact,
well,
like,
sure.
You know, I can't come up with you know, movie trailers for you know, something that's a joke from like Back to the Future or something like that. Doesn't but that would be like such a dream job, just to come up with like asinine movie trailers for fake movies that don't exist in our actual universe.
No, I get it, and I'm right there with you.
Very fun. Jenna, I don't have any more questions. Oh, I have one more.
Yeah, one more.
So I lied. I have 2 more. Do you have any questions for me? This is you can say no. an answer. I don't.
I want to know how, because I think that we both have a pretty soft spot for Illinois State, and
Oh, yeah.
especially the School of
The
Communications.
softest.
So the softest. How did that, being there, how did that form your career path, and how is it still impacting you today?
It is. It's still
Yeah.
impacting me today. Great question. That's it. That's my only answer. No. So did Laura Trinopoulos pay you to ask this question as part of their marketing?
She didn't, I promise.
This is their guerrilla marketing effort, is paying alumni to it. The communication program at Illinois State University is wonderful. If you work in for those of you listening, if you work in the video or radio or print or the media world of any kind in the Midwest, you hands down work with someone from the program at Illinois State University. I mean, it's great. It's top notch. So one of the things that how it shaped me is that we had a TV news program, TV10. Jena, you're familiar with that.
Of course, yeah.
It's the student-run daily TV station there that we would run. I would do, I started out doing like weather, and then I started reporting, and I started anchoring. And if anyone can imagine me talking for 30 minutes, and I didn't quite have the passion for TV news that the people around me did. And like, I would watch these people, and these are people I went to school with that now have like stellar careers in television news. And I just didn't have the passion for it. But I was like, I've got the passion for something communication related. And the TV director or instructor, Laura Trinopoulos, was like, well, what do you want to do? I'll give you airtime to develop what you want to do. And
that's amazing.
So it gave me the opportunity to, essentially I got with my really good friend, Pat, we got a half-hour slot once a week to create our own show. And, so we had our own weekly show for like 3 or 4 semesters, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I learned how to essentially be my own boss. I was, with a small crew, but you learn how to produce things. So you learn how to get in touch with clients, schedule things, be on your own, and you're stuck to your own deadlines too. So like,
I was going to say deadlines, right? That's a big thing.
I am sure, I don't recall any specifics, but I'm sure that there were times where I was being a dumb college boy, and I might've missed a deadline or two, and we had to play a repeat episode.
Yep.
And I mean, and you learn like right away. You're like, oh yeah, if it's going on at noon every Thursday, it's not 12:45. It's going on at noon every single Thursday. And there's a lot of, when people rely on you, that's really it's really powerful in a lot of ways, where like you need to not let them down, but it's also your opportunity to make them look as good as you can, whatever the video is about. And those sort of things really shaped who I am and how I approach my freelance stuff. And those are different things, but there's some overlap. If you look at all of the stuff I've done, it's like a Venn diagram, and then like in the middle is like Adam and my freelancing. And it also gave me an opportunity to just be a dum-dum around people and get to know people and learn how to deal with clients, which I think is a massive part of my job and something that I'm pretty good at. And then of course I learned how to operate cameras and whatever else, and microphones and things like that. So that's a great question. I appreciate that. I get through these, and
communication is great.
I just want to learn from other people and talk to other people, and then I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I've talked about myself, but I didn't let you ask any questions. Okay, Jena, do you have any more questions for me? You can say no.
No.
Okay. I'm sure I've talked enough in this one. So Jena, my very last question for you though is that if people want to see more of your design work or get in touch with you or follow you on social media, how do they do that?
Great question. So marblegraphicdesign.com or Instagram is marble.designs.
Great. Let's see here. I'm gonna go to that real quick. Instagram. And it's just spelled like it's just MARBLE, right? .design.
Yeah, MARBLE.designs. Again, you're having an identity crisis, so this will probably change by the time this is live. People are looking. We're trying to shape it up, have a clear point of view, message, whatever. Right now, it's just kind of been like, oh, I'm feeling creative. I'll post this.
Yep, I get it. Cool. Jena, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It was great to see you. I know we haven't like talked in, I don't know how many years.
Several.
Officially, yeah, several years.
Yeah.
I take that back. We talked like a month ago about a client project, but
we did, yes.
But in the grand scheme of things, we haven't seen each other in quite some time. So it's been a delight to catch up a little bit. And
I agree.
And I'm glad to hear you're doing well. And
yes,
I'm jealous of your whatever the hell the weather is in Arizona right now. I'm jealous of. It's like 18 and there's really I don't mind the cold, but I want it to be snowy. And there's not
exactly. If it's gonna, let's not diddle daddle. If it's gonna be cold, let's have snow. Let's not have the slush. None of the in between.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I tell people I want to move to like Wisconsin or Michigan or Minnesota, and they're like,
yeah,
but all the snow, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds great.
right.
Illinois is just cold
instead
and
of
gray.
Just ice and slush and
just cold and gray, man. It's the least favorite color I can have in a palette. But anyway.
But actually, the Pantone color of the year. So
is it
for 2021?
Oh my gosh, it's delightful.
It's a nice gray and then a nice vibrant yellow for
that's fun.
Looking up in the new year. Yeah.
Oh, I like it. I can handle that.
Me too.
I will take credit for that gray then.
Yes.
You're welcome, designers. But really, Jen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, it has
thank you again for taking the time to do this. I've talked to you for like an hour and a half at this point.
That's okay. Well, thank you for the invite as well. It was really nice to just chat creative for a little bit.
Yeah, likewise. So anyway, I'm out of here. If you want to know any more about Jena and Marble Designs, you can follow those links in the description below. And thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of Freelancers.